The Speaker canceled today, just a little bit ago, with the joint session dealing with the judiciary, state of the judiciary, which lends to us to ask the question, why was this canceled? I think it's, there are no accidents that occur in this building, occur at all, and I found it to be completely ironic that the Senate resolution to suspend the rules and conduct that joint session to hear the address happened to be number 22. Boy, just how fitting, because just last week I heard of another number 22 that the Supreme Court also heard. Unfortunately, they threw that bill that this body worked extremely hard on. They absolutely, in my opinion, overlooked their capability, their duty, their responsibility of ensuring that they're following the Constitution. And it was by mere and total and purely political means of reining in judicial power that they threw this bill out. They gave standing to a gentleman, I mean, let's be real, that had no standing whatsoever to go before the court to bring this case before the Supreme Court. Then they ruled that they didn't like in one single amendment that was added on this body, then made it through the entire process of the legislature, unamended and untainted from that point on. They then threw the entire bill that this body worked diligently and hard on to rein in their capability of writing ballot language. They threw it out in its entirety. And what did that bill do? What was the underlying bill? It was to prevent the judiciary from writing ballot language. Mr. President, can we get order?
Would you please keep your conversations down in the chamber and allow the senator from Cass to proceed? Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Because it's been quite clear that this is a problem with the judiciary, thinking that they have carte blanche capability to do the job of the legislature. And when they don't like the fact that their power is being reined, that is not afforded to them in the checks and balances, the spheres of authority that are granted to each branch of government, they don't like it, so therefore they're just going to do whatever the heck they want to do. They want to act like they're the legislature. It's appalling. And anyone that's been in this chamber, I know there's a lot of new members and a lot of people that really haven't been in this building very long. I've been in this building for quite some time. I'm in my final term in my entire capability provided by the Constitution of serving in the General Assembly. 14 years. And unfortunately, in that 14 years, we see time and time and time and time again a court that wants to trample on the authority of this legislature. And I have a laundry list that I plan to talk on. Again, Senate Bill 22. A court does not have the right or the capability to legislate from the bench. That is solely within the power of the initiative petition or within the power of the legislature. Putting pen to paper for people to make a decision on their Constitution is not the authority of a court. But they didn't like that, so they just throw it out on some ridiculous, trumped-up garbage ruling, saying that they're now the fortune teller court is what we have. Because they said without this amendment from the senator from the 2nd, that we just don't know whether this bill would have been able to make it through the process in its entirety. So therefore, we've got to rule this bill totally incapable to pass and be standing to be a standing law. So they threw the whole bill out on that accord alone. Well, first off, it was...
Again, please keep your conversations down in the Senate chamber. Senator from Cass, please proceed.
this body and this Republican Senate caucus is one of our top priorities as a caucus. This bill, to rein in the courts. This specific bill of reining in their capability to write ballot language. So I find it ironic that a court magically can read our minds, can read every member of the legislature in both chambers as to how on earth or whether or not a bill would pass, whether or not it has one amendment added to it. The fact is they can't, and that's why the ruling was so egregious. But let's look at other rulings that this court has also ruled upon. Medicaid expansion. It was an initiative petition process. It requires the state to expend funds on Medicaid program. But you know, this pesky thing called the Missouri State Constitution says explicitly in Article 3, that for something to go on the ballot before the people, that if it's an appropriation, it has to have a funding mechanism attached to it. If it doesn't, it's a completely invalid and moot point to be able to put before the voters, because it would require us to have to expend already allocated funds. But do you think the Supreme Court read the actual Constitution? Nope. Nope, they allowed it on the ballot, even said that it was constitutional, and they funded it, and guess what? We have to make changes to the budget because we weren't able, and they had no funding mechanism for it. And when all this federal money dries up, guess what? We're going to be seeing this year during the legislative process just how big of a burden Medicaid expansion is on our existing budget. Another one had to do with appropriations. Again, who has the sole delegated authority in appropriation? It is the legislature. It is not the court. In fact, you have no say whatsoever under the Constitution, no power whatsoever of what we say goes with an appropriation. But when we decided that we're not going to fund Planned Parenthoods, what did they say? Oh, no, you have to. And you can't legislate through the budget. I tell you, go and look up what an appropriation, by definition, a legislative appropriation is. It is discretion upon funds. We legislate exactly where every flipping dollar is spent. It is a legislative prerogative for us to do. So for a court to say that we cannot legislate from the bench, it's saying we cannot appropriate. This isn't a partisan issue. This is a checks and balances upon a legislative and judicial branch. Because I guarantee you, if the court was writing, MAGA Republican language when it came to Amendment 3, they'd have been with their hair on fire. But because we have a court writing Planned Parenthood language when Amendment 3 was challenged, and they rewrote a ballot language that clearly, the Planned Parenthood themselves couldn't have wrote the Amendment 3 ballot language better themselves. But the court wrote that and persuaded voters to pass that egregious amendment. Partial birth abortion. But boy, it didn't mention that it's partial birth abortion in our state constitution, did it? No, they made it as fluffy as they possibly could to ensure they were persuading voters to vote a different way. We could go on and on. They have done this on so many occasions. And how do we pick our justices? Well, first off, they're not accountable to the people. Let's be real. People have no clue who they're voting for when they see them on the ballot. You can't ask them questions because they'll just deflect. Elections are basically useless for these justices. Who picks this slate? Well, it just so happens to be the Missouri bar behind closed doors. There's a reason why our founders of this nation put forth a model in which you have a president put up that nominee, and you have the elected representatives of the people check their their stance, their viewpoint, and every aspect of it to ensure that they're of right mind and right mindset to take the bench. But that's not what we have. We have a behind closed doors, private organization making this choice, removing the elected representatives of the people, closest to the people, making that determination and advise and consent of them assuming the bench. And that's why we have a runaway court. Again, this is not a partisan issue. It is a checks and balances issue of a court that feels they are above and beyond the law. They are the rule and the reign. We had the former senator from the 2nd that used to call them the black-robed tyrants across the street in the brick building, because that's exactly what we have. And again, I know the left wants to laugh and scoff, but I guarantee you their hair would be on fire on this floor if they were ruling as staunch, hard red Republicans, not a bunch of left-wing rag Democrats that they are. They are supposed to be completely benign to politics and rule according to law and the Constitution. The Western District, hey, a perfect example. We passed 22. It made it to where the courts had no capability to rewrite ballot language. It had to go to the Secretary of State. It's a brand new law. It's right there, black and white. But what did the Western District do? They said pound sand, and they rewrote the new Amendment 3. The law said explicitly, no, you cannot do that. If they are going to overlook blatant limitations on their power and not totally work in confines of the law, then they have no right to persecute anyone else under the law. That's why this is such an egregious action by this court. Not just because I was the bill sponsor. It's because this is a flagrant slap in the face to this body and the body over there. That's why I'm highly upset that they would cancel, because their butts needed to be setting over in this chamber while they see everybody stare them in their face for the crap they pull. Instead, they get to hide behind their little brick building like little kings and queens in their black robes. And I hope this body will join us and put a stop to this crap. We see it all over. A poor lady stabbed in the freaking neck because a judge didn't do her job. Bled out while people watch, which that dude should have been in jail. It's crap like this that we have to put a stop to this nonsense. I just had a bill today dealing with judicial malfeasance. Because again, we can't have reckless judges that allow people to rain terror on the innocent. But when you don't have a checks and balances, or we're terrified to go against the court, they'll run ranshot against us. Outrageous. And I hope this body, regardless of party, again, will join us in rectifying and putting forth a checks and balances back where it belongs. Go look at the Federalist Papers at the organization of this nation, where they had to convince Americans why they needed this constitutional republic. And it was quite clear the judiciary, yes, was supposed to be the least of all three branches. That's not what we have today. And again, I think it will potentially, with us taking a stand against the judiciary, yes, it may get worse before it gets better. Before we're able to get before the people and put a check on their power, boy, they're going to really stick it to the legislature. I say, so be it. Let the people be the final arbiter of putting real, true limitations and checks and balances on this out-of-control court, this misjustice that they continue to perpetrate upon the people. The murder of the unborn, enshrined in our Constitution. This right here that we're supposed to swear an oath to protect and defend, I'll be damned if I'm going to swear an oath to murder little babies.
Again, please keep your conversation in the chamber, and again, be careful with your language also, Senator. Please proceed, Senator from Cass. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize for that. But I just say this, and I hope they're listening and listening well, and I'm sure they're probably laughing and slapping each other on the back. But I hope this body just embodies the resolve to put that check and to put this law back in place immediately. And I say go even further than what we did, where it's a three-step, three-tier deal, and you get your say finally, and then no. We granted you the authority to write ballot language. We've granted you this authority thinking you would be judicious, you would be confined within the confines of the Constitution. Nope, no more. You have no right. And I hope this body will do that. Again, countless rulings. And again, I'm not going to bore you with, but countless rulings of this court that flagrantly throws that Constitution into the mud, stomps on it, and flips the middle bird to us every freaking day. Thank you, Mr. President.